Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We are on the Bima with Dr. Peter Isherwood. We're always glad when you're here. And actually, you are also a doctor. You are a doctor of jurisprudence, correct? So so we have a few doctors up here. And later on, we'll be joined by Andy Melnick, who's going to speak to us about a trip he recently went through the Middle East. And in thinking about the Middle East and Israel, the song I'd like to begin with is on page 644. It's called Im Tirtzu. And in this song, well, this could be on like Jewish Jeopardy. Does anyone know who wrote this quote? If you will it is no dream to be a free people in a land of Zion and Jerusalem. Yes. Yes. Theodore Herzl.
Oh, really?
Brenda, excellent.
He was in my basement. I was Abraham Lincoln, 7 years old. Get closer.
I'm very impressed. So Theodore Herzl, if you're ever on Jeopardy, wrote this. He is considered to be the author of modern Zionism. And Theodore Herzl, in the late 1800s, started this movement that we need to return to our homeland. And it was inspired by a lot of the self-determination that was going on in Europe with Bismarck and Garibaldi, who, I don't know if you realize this, but Italy had to go through its own nationalism. Germany had to go through its nationalism. Maybe Germany took it a little too far, but it inspired basically, this thought that we should have a land and it should be Israel. So with that, our opening song is Im Tirtzu, and I think you'll remember it from when you were a little kid. Please join together.
Page.
Oh, the page. Oh, thank you. Page 644. Thank you, Peter. Im Tirtzu. Turn in your prayer books to page 120, and we invite over our soon-to-be president, Margot Hassan, to help lead us in the candles and Kiddush. And I know Dean is counting the moments. Or maybe Sharon is. Yes.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Shabbat.
122.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all work of creation that God had done.
Page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Barim Karim hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesh v'ahava u'ratzon hilchilanu, v'karon l'maaseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom tehila lemikra'ei kodesh, zeichen tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'chorta, v'tanu kidasha, mikramim, v'shabbat kodesha, v'ahava u'ratzon yichatan. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh Hashabbat. Amen.
Right? Thank you, Margot. We're going to continue with our worship as we turn to the Baruch Hu on page 146. And if you're able, please rise.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Page 148. Let's practice our Hebrew in the top right-hand corner. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmorotehem barakia kirtsono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uven layla, Adonai tsevaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ma'ariv aravim. Page 150. We read together on the bottom in English. Everlasting love, people Israel, by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, law and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we'll meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך וכל נפשך וכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אלוהים מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו עשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So a little note about sitting and standing in worship. Sitting and standing in Jewish worship, and sitting and standing and sitting and standing, is actually, you can thank your Reform predecessors. They added choreography in the 1800s that hadn't been there. If you go to a traditional synagogue, people are either standing the whole time or mostly sitting the whole time. Okay? And also, one of the things it says in the Mishnah is you need to stay in the position you were in from the Shema through the Ve'ahavta. So if you were sitting, you're supposed to stay sitting. And if you were standing, you're supposed to stay standing. But we did this big innovation where we made sure people specifically stood for the Shema to highlight it as the watchword of our faith. But also now what's happened is that we stand for the call to worship Baruch Hu, and we just say standing, but then if we were in a traditional synagogue, we wouldn't sit for Ve'ahavta, we would remain in the same position. So this was something we did. And when you stand and when you sit is supposed to elevate the importance of the prayer, whether it does or not, or maybe it just wakes you up. But so this is some of the history behind why we do this. And if you go to Torah El in Oakhurst, I was talking to that rabbi. I said, what do you do for that one? He said, we stay sitting the whole time. Well, okay, you know, and he and I had a long conversation about it because it's only interesting to people like us. But we're on page 158 with our Song of Freedom, Micha Mocha. And this is the Micha Mocha where I sing, you sing. Please join together.
Micha Mocha, ha'edim Adonai, Micha Mocha, nenor ba'kodesh, Nora, Tehilot, Osei, Fene, Nora, Tehilot, Osei, Fene,
On page 160, we read together on the left-hand side of the page, let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapurei sukkot shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. And on page 162, we join together in V'shamru.
Oh
165. Pray as if everything depended on God, but act as if everything depended on you. We rise for the Amidah, page 164.
Adonai sepatai tiftach ufi hagim tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu mimotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Hayel Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanara, Eliyod, Omer Hasadim Tovim, Mekonei Hakol, Bezoher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Mevi Golan Livnei Bneihem, Laman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer Moshiach Hagein, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Be'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechei Kol atah Rav Be'Hoshea, Mashim HaRuach U'Marin HaGashem, Mechalkel Chayim B'Chesed, Mechayei HaKol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somich Noflim B'Ofei Holim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekavayim Emunato L'Shinei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Givurot, U'Midom Melech, Melech Mevit U'Mechayeh, U'Matzliach Yeshua, Mineman Hatan HaChayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. Atah Kadosh Shimcha Kadosh, Kadoshim b'chol yom v'haruch hasela, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. So I want to point out a big discussion in Judaism amongst people who really think these things are important. So when you start the Amidah 166, we start by going Baruch atah Adonai, okay? Because it's as if you're approaching the king who is God, okay? And then when we get to 168, at the bottom of the page, when it says Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei HaKol, a lot of people bow there, but I was taught you're not supposed to bow there. Because although you want to seem deferential to God, you don't want to seem obsequious. You don't want to seem overly pious, like you have something to prove. So, isn't that the Jewish way? It's like Mordechai, I won't bow. So it's an interesting thing because lots of people do it. Traditionally, they just bow there. And a lot of people bow on the next page as well. But I had it drilled in my head not to bow there. So you're going to see sometimes people bow there and they don't. So like I said, this is an unfinished discussion, but this is what we were taught, and I can find it in a book and show you, but I'm probably the only one who remembers it. But Rabbi Prezan taught me this as well, so I like to illustrate that. Did you have a question? Brenda?
Rabbi Prezan,
Yeah.
she was on the FEMA, explained that to us.
Yes, Rabbi Prezan taught me that as well. So even if I had drifted into a bad habit, she quickly cleaned me up of that 23 years ago. And if she didn't bow, I wasn't going to bow. And but I think it's an interesting thing that you're mindful of when you do something and you don't, even if it's not so specific. So I'm like mindful of when I do and when I don't. And you don't do things. I think the actual point is you don't do things on autopilot. You do things in a mindful way, which is the whole point of eating kosher food, that you watch what goes in your mouth, because that's all you have control over, what goes in your mouth and what comes out of your mouth. So it's about mindfulness. Anyway, but yes, Brenda, she taught that lesson when she taught liturgy, and she absolutely taught me well. More than ever, we need to sing together on 178 our song of peace, peace for everyone, cessation of war, of violence, and a world that's a better place. Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha.
בחנית ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך, משיגים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך, משיגים לעולם. תשיגים לעולם, תשיגים לעולם.
We pray silently. You're the best, Peter. He follows me so well. So at this time in our service, we're going to rise up and take the Torah out of the ark and read it. And again, this is a reform innovation. In a traditional synagogue, you are never going to see the Torah read on a Friday night. You're only going to see it on a Saturday morning, and when else? A Monday and a Thursday. And it was done on Monday and Thursday, not because those are very holy days, but because that's when the Jews went to market. So the holy people went to market with the scroll, and they did it all at once. Very practical people, the Jewish people. So the German Jews said, when do people go to synagogue? They're going to come Friday, because they're shopkeepers and they work on Saturday. So we're going to read the Torah on Friday. So that's the history of Reform Judaism, reading the Torah on a Friday night. Please rise.
devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omer. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omer. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Ve'ha'ereni v'toratecha v'daber be'enu v'tzvotecha. Ve'yeh yachid et ha'avenu le'ahava u'yirah et shemecha.
For the honor of reading Torah, we invite up David Levinsky. David Levinsky, in one of his former lives, was our beloved religious school principal. And David, honestly, as I've gotten older, I marvel on the fact that you taught math in Staten Island and then came here twice a week, had really, literally what are considered 2 full-time jobs. And you helped generations of people love Judaism. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But don't sing. No, I said that for you, Karen. No, I don't care.
I'm not allowed to sing in temple.
He is. That's a temple joke.
It is?
Yes, it is. Well, we think it is.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim. Natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Our Torah reading can be found tonight on page 604. And the Torah portion is terumah, which means gifts. And I'll talk about that in a second. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael, vayichu li truma, me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo, tiku et trumati, bezot trumat, asher tihu meitam, zahav v'chesef unchoshet, ותכלת וארגמן ותולת שני ושש ויזים בורות אלים מאוד עמים בורות תחשים בצי שיטים שמן למאור וסמים לשמן המשחה ולקטורת הסמים אבני שוחם ואבני מילואים לאפוד ולחושן ועשו לי מקדש ושכנתי בתוכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. And thank you for so many things. I love David.
Back on Wednesday.
Oh, well, thank you, David. So this Torah portion is a little interesting, if you ask me, because we're building the tabernacle. Okay, we're building a tabernacle. So the Israelites were told to bring gifts. Okay? So it gives a little list. It says gold, silver, copper, purple, crimson, blue, yarn, fine linen, goat's hair, ram skin, dolphin skins, acacia wood, oil for lighting, spices for anointing, the incense, lapis lazuli, and other stones for the ephod and the breastpiece, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Okay, Okay. Does anything jump out at you as something strange to find in the desert in that list? Dolphin skin. Oh, you're all so smart. Okay. Scientifically speaking, why would there be dolphin skins near the desert? Oh. That I don't think that's it though. The reason is probably that our deserts used to be covered by water and ocean. Okay, remember it's all been changed. We have other instances of this. There's a blue dye in Judaism. Okay, and what is the blue dye from? This is one of the oldest dyes ever. You're supposed to crush that snail up and hydrate it and where are they getting snails in the desert? Because they were left over from the ancient sea that was there. So maybe there's some thought that it was a bad translation, as Bob said, or maybe, what'd you say? It could be. Yeah, it could be, or some scientists believe it was from the ancient water that used to cover the desert, but I think it's pretty interesting. Anyway, please rise. At this time in our service, we're thinking about those in our community, people we love, people all over the world, people who need our prayers of healing, not only the sick, but the caregivers, those who need our strength. In our congregation, we are asked to remember with love for prayers of healing. Rabbi Robert Orak, Martha Brandween, Jessica Knight, Niles Chopper, Myra Taxa, Michael Lynch, Yvette Urado, Mary Jaros, Rabbi Leslie Bergson, Barry Bernstein, Chuck Prezand, Sophia Van S., Marcy Gibellino, Linda Cania, Janine Losco, Stephanie Roberts, Bernard Shagan, Florence Schreiner, Suzanne Baker, Stu Kaufman, Avi Bush, Shoshana Batchana, Vicki Bernstein. And if there are any names that you would like to add, please do so. We'll start over here and go around the room. In the back? Over on this side? Anyone else? We join together in our prayer of healing on page 371.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha beirach imotenu, mikor habracha ne'avotenu. Those in need of healing, with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We return the Torah to the ark and remain standing.
It's Chaim, lama chazikima, betzor mechicha, mekushar, deracheicha, mekeinu, bekornetivotecha, shalom.
So speaking of gifts, one of the things that it says in this portion is that we're each supposed to bring our own special gifts to build the sanctuary, the holy place that we may dwell among there. And it's a lot of what people bring to our synagogue are their intellectual gifts. And about to introduce our speaker, who brings his gifts to us tonight. And many of us know Andy, but Andy's a very impressive guy, and we're very lucky that you're here tonight, Andy. Andrew J. Melnick. What's the J for? Jose? Joseph. Andrew Jose Melnick, Joseph Melnick, managing partner at Skyview Investment Advisors, has over 50 years of Wall Street experience. He previously served as partner and co-director of Goldman Sachs Global Investments and Economics Research Division, and was the senior VP at Merrill Lynch, where he expanded its global securities and economic research group. And under Andy's leadership, Merrill Lynch's research was ranked #1 by the Institutional Investor for 7 consecutive years. Andrew is a member of the National Board of Governors at the American Jewish Committee, the AJC, which is a global advocacy organization for the Jewish people, and has been a board member for nearly 20 years. He heads the investment committee advising on AJC's endowment and is on the board of the Arabian Gulf Institute. And through the AJC, he travels extensively in the Middle East, meeting with senior government officials in the Gulf, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, and Tunisia. In the spring of last year, he visited Jordan, and he met with the head of intelligence and spent time in Israel. And there's a very nice picture of Andy near the Dome of the Rock I can share with you later on. And most recently, he participated in an AJC solidarity mission to Israel, meeting with senior officials and bearing witness in the Gaza envelope. Locally, Andrew serves as a commissioner on the Monmouth County Improvement Authority and is a member of the Finance and Strategic Planning Committees at Monmouth Medical Center. He holds a BA and an MBA from Rutgers University and a CFA designation. Andrew served in the U.S. Army Signal Corps during the Vietnam War. We thank you for your service. But most of all, in my opinion, Andy and Eunice have been loyal members of our synagogue for well over 30 years, and they are truly great models of generosity and selflessness to our community, to the Jewish people, and the world. So we thank you, Andy, for coming up and telling us what you've learned. I know.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And I must say, Cantor, I didn't recognize who you were talking about.
Well, remember, I'm not married to you, Andy. I really like you.
I should have had my wife here tonight to hear this. It might have been a little different. Again, thank you, everybody here. The AJC, the American Jewish Committee, just for your background, was founded in 1906, yes, to fight the pogroms happening in Eastern Europe, Russia. As a matter of fact, my father was there during those times, so he was lucky to get out of there. And as the Cantor mentioned, I just came back from a Board of Governors solidarity mission to Israel for about 5 days. I had been, as you mentioned, had been in Jordan, Israel, and Cyprus in the spring of 2024. Getting to Israel today is not easy. It will be easier in March. The 3 American airlines were boycotting Israel, as I think you know, United, American, and Delta. And so the only airline available, obviously, was El Al, and they're making a lot of money at it, good Jews. And the seats were not available, so I had to leave a day earlier. As a result, I had an extra day, and anytime I go to Israel, if I can, I went to Jerusalem because we were in Tel Aviv. And the driver and the guide was a woman of about 50 years old who had said she had served in the commando units in the IDF. What was interesting is what she said is we were concerned whether our young people could stand tall in the case of an existential, I have a hard time with words, existential event like occurred on 10/7. And she said they stood very tall. You know, if you've been to Israel, you see a lot of teenagers with rifles on their shoulder, 18, 19, and 20, and they're amazing. And what's perhaps more important to everybody sitting here is the head of our AJC office in Jerusalem, a retired lieutenant colonel, has 3 kids on active duty in the war. And as one of the veterans said, it is a lot more difficult to have your kids on the front lines than for you to be there. And that's something that I think as Americans, and certainly as American Jews, we really don't think about, what that means. But it's an important thing. Our second day we spent in Jerusalem meeting with various government people. I'll go over few of the comments. Generally, they were the same everywhere. The first person we met was Brigadier General Shalom, which is sort of an interesting name for a person in the Army. He was the head of, sorry about that. He was the head of the Political Military Bureau of the Ministry of Defense. He made a couple obvious statements. He said 10/7 was a strategic defeat. Everybody says that. And on the other hand, they made it a strategic comeback, a strategic achievement, which is very key for the relationships of Israel with the Sunni Arab states, because they look to Israel as the only country that can't leave the Middle East that's the military power. He said at that time, this is 3 weeks ago, Israel is close to dismantling Hamas. However, on the West Bank is a real problem. Hamas is there. Iran is smuggling arms into the West Bank. And so the IDF is spending every night over there. And for the first time since the Intifada, which occurred in 2002, there are tanks there that go into some of the areas that they've wiped out to make sure they're not coming back. So it's not a pretty time, to say the least. He talked about Hezbollah in Lebanon. He said we did well because we had great intelligence, as you can tell with the pagers exploding, et cetera, getting rid of the leadership. And we made the right decision by not going into Hezbollah on October 7th, but waiting. And I think you know, but he mentioned that Israel not only destroyed the air defense of Iran, but the missile production capability of Iran through their attacks. And he said Israel should be willing to take more risk. And you'll hear this constantly. What they're really saying is attack Iran. And if you think about it, this month is what?
Ramadan?
Purim.
Purim, yeah.
It's the month of Purim. So you wonder whether they're going to use that month as a basis to do something. One will find out. Then we met at the Knesset with Benny Gantz, who's the leader of the opposition. He was part of the unified cabinet early in the war, but now he's not. He's a former chief of staff of the Israeli military. His first statement to us was, there is no sufficient revenge that we can get to justify 10/9. He said against Hezbollah, which is repeating what the other person said, we use the most advanced military operations. And he thinks Lebanon now has a chance to be what it can be. Others would disagree with that. Then the Abraham Accords relative to Iran attacking Israel. And the Abraham Accords enabled the air defense against Iran. So it was not only Israel, it was the other countries that are part of the Abraham Accords. And when we were in Jordan, in Amman, we're meeting with the head of intelligence. By the way, in the Middle East, what really happens is between the heads of intelligence, not the foreign ministers. And that's what you'll find. So the head of intelligence said, we stopped a lot of the drones going towards Israel, but we told Iran if the drones were coming the other way, we would stop them as well, sort of like trying to make amends to Iran. This is interesting. I thought what he said. We thought the enemy was like us. That was a mistake. We projected our values on them. Another mistake. They are not like us. They want to destroy Israel. They really mean it. And that's probably true of Iran too. They really mean it. Their only interest is killing Jews. But he said, what this has done is unified the Israeli people, right and left. And our people cannot stand the idea of a two-state solution. What was disturbing to me is what he said, those who have not entered high school will be fighting in Gaza in the future. That's not exactly a great thing to think about. Now, one of the things that an American Jewish Committee, like I was traveling to parts of the Sunni Arab states, as Cantor mentioned, when we did that, that was before the Abraham Accords, before any recognition by the Sunni Arab states. So when we did it, we had to do it very quietly and not let people know. And we built relations between Israel and these people through these I remember sitting next to dinner with the Bahraini foreign minister. I won't tell you how undiplomatic I was, but in any case, on October 8th, 2023, the day after 10/7, we were in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, the Saudis don't want us to ever mention that the American Jewish Committee was in Saudi Arabia, so I haven't. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, not me, but members of the AJC were in Riyadh again. But the point I want to make here is we met with the second highest official in the Saudi Arabian foreign ministry, which means he's probably running the show because they usually have a prince of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, but they're the son of, so they're there. He walked into us and said, it's going to be a long and dirty war. Then he said, we understand the Israelis. And what did he mean by that? He said, you know, we've been battling the Houthis, and we'll kill some young Houthis. And the Americans will come along and criticize us. We understand the Israelis. Then he said, pardon me, there are three things for an agreement. One, some sort of security agreement with the United States. Secondly, that we're permitted to do the civilian processing of uranium for the use in utilities. And that's important because 25% of the uranium used in U.S. power plants came from Russia. And so that is no longer available. So that's what they're looking at. The third is some agreement, long-term, whatever, of a Palestinian state. And he said, on that, we're not involved. You and Israel have to make that agreement. And then there's a possibility of something going on. So we brought up to Benny Gantz that, hey, we need a two-state solution for the Abraham Accords. And he looked at us and said, two-state solution? No, it's a two-state illusion. And that is the general sense of Israelis today, so you understand that. He said, as I said earlier, we made a mistake in Gaza, he said. We can't make the same mistake with Iran. They think like us. We have to go to war. Then we met with Amir Ohana, Speaker of the Knesset. Now, he is obviously part of Bibi's party, Likud. He mentioned that 10/7 stopped the Abraham Accords. We all know that. He then said, we must prevent Iran by all means. I think you're getting the message. At the same time, we've reshaped the Middle East. Again, the same statement. Two-state solution is the worst idea ever because it rewards terrorists. Then we met with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You're going to hear the same thing again. I'm really shortening. All these meetings were about an hour. We met with Gideon Zar, Minister of the Foreign Affairs. He said, with Iran, we don't have much time because they can rebuild their air defense, their missiles, etc. There's only one thing to do, go forward. And he wouldn't go any further forward, what that meant, but you got the idea. Then we met with Isaac Herzog. Bibi was in Washington, otherwise we would have met him. But Isaac Herzog, president of Israel, he didn't say much different than the other people. He did say Trump is moving forward with the Saudis, we'll see. One of the interesting things he said, the key threat to Israel is where the U.S. is headed as a society. And what he meant by that is Israel is very dependent on bipartisan support in the United States. And then I left the resident. I didn't see it. I tripped over. I shattered my elbow and spent 4 hours. I was in Jerusalem, so we took a taxi to Tel Aviv, spent 4 hours in an Israeli hospital, had a sling, etc. People asked me, how was the medical treatment? I said, they're Jewish doctors. What do you expect? So it was pretty good. The next day, we went down to the Gaza envelope to, as they say, bear witness. I had been in Gaza in June of 2023. And the people down there are known as the peaceniks. They want to put it all together. And so we met with the mayor who described how they were building an industrial park in which they could employ the Arabs from Gaza, pay them much higher salaries, and make for a better relationship. That mayor is dead. Our first stop was near Oz, the kibbutz. That's where the two brothers, etc. And you know, the press says they were killed, whatever. As you know, they were choked to death with the bare hands of somebody from Hamas. Imagine somebody choking to death a 9-month-old child. That's what they did. But that was not the end of it. They then threw rocks and stones at the bodies. So people would think it had been an air attack. Then they put them in the coffins, and what do they do in the coffins? They put all sorts of propaganda material around the bodies. And what's interesting about the Israelis, they check all the coffins just in case there's booby traps in there. That's the nature of this war. It ain't pretty. So anyway, we got down there, as I mentioned, the first stop. By the way, we passed their home, and the toys are still outside, out front. And you've seen the pictures. I don't have to tell you what the destruction down there. You go into a house there, the safe rooms, and there'd be bullet holes all over the safe rooms, if they weren't burned down. Now, the attack began at 627th on 10/7, or in Israel, it's 7/10, but either way. So they all got into their safe rooms, and the normal operating procedure would be that the IDF would show up in 30 minutes. That didn't happen, as you all know. It was a holiday, Simchat Torah. About 5,000 Hamas came in against less than 1,000 IDF that were down there. They were overwhelmed. And in this kibbutz near Oz, the first wave were, in effect, like special ops, the best troops that Hamas had. And, pardon me, and then a second wave came in. And Hamas took control for 7 hours there. Not only were there military, and this I didn't know, 3,000 Arab civilians came in from Gaza to loot the place and to take hostages on which they would gain a bounty. Roughly about a quarter of the kibbutz, 41, were tortured and murdered. And you'll see at the other kibbutzes, we heard the same story about the army not being there. We went up to the largest kibbutz government council, the Eshkol Regional Council, where there's a mayor, a woman, and she was fantastic. She could be the leader of the country. She quoted Jonathan Sachs, the chief rabbi of the UK, and he quoted, "We are not, we're not a people with a story, but a story with a people." Then she said, "The Arabs burned everything. 254 were murdered." And she talked about her teenage boys crying. And she said to them, "Snap out of it. This is the end of your childhood. Get to work." And then she looked at us and said, "We're in it together, American Jews, et cetera, et cetera." She said, "But you need to snap out of it too and get to work." And that was, that experience. More to it, but I'm just trying to be brief here. Then we went to the Nova Festival, where 400 young people were massacred. And it was an interesting experience because we had a policeman talk about what he did. And you can make a movie out of this. He was half Bedouin and half Swiss. That's quite a combination. And he rescued about 50 people out of there by driving car in and out. He said, "Bullets are whizzing around my head. I still don't know how I'm alive." It's an incredible story, and I can't repeat it because I couldn't take notes fast enough. 18 policemen were killed. He talked about bringing their bodies in. But one thing he said, the police blocked the road to Tel Aviv. Without that, the terrorists might have made it to Tel Aviv. So that was important. So we went further north along Gaza to the Aluman kibbutz. It's a religious one. Same story, no army. Hamas showed up after dealing with Nova, came in on motorbikes, and they had Thai farm workers. They had about 32, 22 were killed, many were taken hostage. And he said to us, he was a Brit, and he was very emotional, but he said, as he pointed to Gaza, he said, "Those people over there are not going to stop us from building the land of Israel. They do not know us." Then on our last day, we met with some of the hostage families. And two of them, their relative had come back. And one was an interesting story. It was a young girl. She was taken hostage when she was 8. Came back at 10. Sorry, I forgot to turn it off. Bob had told me to turn it off and I forgot. So this 10-year-old comes back and her father said she would only whisper for 2 days. She would not talk for 2 days. She was whispering. And he finally found out what happened. Hamas would put a knife to her throat and say, "If you talk, need I say more?" So we did have a speaker from who had been at the top, one of the tops in the Mossad. He was the head of the Mossad intelligence counterintelligence directory. The only comment I would say that he made that was different, no, not really. He said it took Hezbollah. It took us 6 weeks to deal with Hezbollah. We meant business. None of the politicians get in. And one of the things you hear about up in the north, they said, "We don't care what the Americans were saying. We were going to just do it," and so they did it. And the other thing is, we don't have to be afraid of Iran. You come out of that, two things. One, a two-state solution is a two-state illusion for the time being. And two, Iran is the key issue. The last thing I did there, we met with lone soldiers. I think you know what lone soldiers are, but they're soldiers who come to Israel without any parents or anything else, and they fight, etc. And sat next to a 23-year-old Australian woman who had been up with the IDF up in Hezbollah. Now she was on the West Bank. the thing you come away from there, among other things, is the strength of the young people of Israel in going to war. I mean, who the heck wants to go to war? But they're amazing, absolutely amazing, the young people. Israel's in trauma, not post-trauma, trauma now. And that's understandable. What happened will change Israel for a long time, but I'm not sure how, but it will. And whether the Arabs do anything about Gaza, I have no answer on Gaza. It's just an incredible situation, and everybody can talk about it, but I don't think anybody has a good answer. And if you haven't been to Israel, I'll go. They need your support. That's okay.
Thank you, Andy.
Okay.
Andy, if people have questions, can they talk to you at the ONED?
Say it again?
If people have any questions, can they speak to you in the ONED?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your coming. At this time in our service, we're going to turn to page 586 and rise for the Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon l'kol, l'tekenu l'aleotzer bereshit, shehuna t'shamayim v'yotzei haaretz, u'mashav yikara b'shamayim b'ma'al, u'shchinat u'zol b'gomhem meromim, u'Eloheinu echad, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, lifnei melech, achei hamlakim, hakadosh baruch hu, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, v'melech al kol haaretz, v'yom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, Shemo echad.
Please be seated. Before we go to our traditional prayer of remembrance, Aleinu, of the Kaddish, I wanted to speak of somebody who passed away this week. So the oldest living mayor in the United States has died. And Vito Perillo lived to be 100 years old and in our hometown of Tinton Falls since he was first elected in 2017. He celebrated his 100th birthday back in the fall. And the question was said to him whether or not he would run for a third term. And the election takes place later this year. And if he had run, he would have been 101 years old. And around the time of his birthday, the mayor told friends and colleagues that he was thinking of looking for a different job. He came to politics late in life, and he had a long history of service. He was a Navy veteran in World War II, and he had a long career as a civil engineer. He was married to his beloved wife, May, who died for 64 years. And actually, in 2017, when he ran for mayor, he wore out 2 pairs of shoes walking door to door. And at 93, he handed out more than 7,500 campaign flyers across Tinton Falls. He won his election, his first election, by just 300 votes. And specifically for our synagogue, Perillo was extremely supportive. And every time there was a reported threat or an incident, all we had to do, and often it was me calling, was to call the police, who were instructed directly by the mayor to provide us with whatever we needed. He was a very, very big support to the Jewish community. And when I thanked him profusely, directly. He said, well, Cantor, I mean, it's just one synagogue. It's not such a hardship. Okay? So he was lessening the impact of what he did. He was a very humble man, and this synagogue is very grateful to him because every time we needed his help, he said yes. So thank you to Vito Perillo for your service to our town and your loyalty to our safety. And we will miss him in our community. He really made a difference. We are remembering this week, in the period of yahrzeit, Bill Barrenter, who was laid to rest this Thursday, and beloved Dr. Gerald Cass. Also remembering Dave Anderson, William B. Arend, Abraham Bialy, Rita Bleedstein, Neil Brandween, Fred Chalnick, John Richardson Clissold, Dorothy Gary, Eugene Gurman, Seymour Grauer, Sophie Gruber, Donald J. Hallard, Elliot Hassan, Jean Jochnowitz, Joe Friend Jr., Philip Kalb, Reba Levin, Rose Levinsky, Anne Mariner, Raymond Mish, Lawrence Parkinson, Rose Schiller, Dorothy Silfrin, Beatrice Silverman, Francis F. Singman, Dorothy Teitelbaum, Hyman Weshnak, Louise Zarin. Are there any other names that you would like to say aloud? Please do so.
Linda, I don't know the last name, D-N-I-H.
Sorry. Are there any other names? Please rise. We continue on page 598 with the Mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit gadash shemei rabbah v'alma divrach yirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach l'olam almei almaya Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit ramam v'yit naseh Vitadar, vitale, vitalal, shmei kudasha brichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, dushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram ve'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Invite up Margot Hassan to share some very important announcements with us.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Welcome to MRT. Thank you for joining us tonight in person and via live stream. February's Tzedakah Box charity is the Wildfire Crisis Relief Fund of the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles. The Jewish Federation is collecting and distributing funds to provide essential resources, including mental health support, warm meals, shelter, and space for displaced individuals, families, and institutions. And I got to say that a few years ago, the two houses directly across the street from me burned to the ground, and we saw the devastation for just two families. So LA's got to be like unimaginable. MRT has lots of great stuff coming up. The Israel Committee invites you to a special gathering on Sunday, March 9th from 1 to 3 to share thoughts about the latest news from Israel. Save the date for the annual Purim Spiel, which will take place on Saturday, March 15th at 6 o'clock. This spiel will feature the music of ABBA. Stay for dinner afterwards, catered by Harold's Deli. It is a fun and silly night, and I think we can all use some of that. MRT is once again participating in a diaper drive to benefit Pinwheel Place, a New Jersey crisis nursery. Donations of any size diapers can be dropped off at the temple during office hours. Join the Adult Ed Committee on Sunday, March 23rd as they welcome our scholar in residence, Professor Yadi in Israel. He will discuss how the New Testament may be considered a Jewish book. Sunday, May 4th is MRT's annual Mitzvah Day. Let's repair the world together. The first organizational meeting will take place March 20th at 7 p.m. Please join us to learn more about the many ways that you can participate. More information about those events can be found in your weekly e-blast. You just have to be patient and scroll and scroll and scroll. It's time to start planning for our community garden. Last year, we donated over 2,000 pounds of fresh veggies to the Jewish Family Services. We need volunteers in order to keep the garden running. Please contact Sheila Bodnar if you can help. No garden experience is necessary, and students can receive community service credit hours. Please check out our Sisterhood Judaica store. They've got beautiful items for sale, and the proceeds go to Sisterhood, which is the backbone of this community. Please check out, if you are considering celebrating a special occasion or observing a loved one's yurtzeit, we hope you will consider sponsoring an oneg to honor the occasion. MRT would love for more people to invest in our mission of connecting and thriving as a Jewish community. Please contact the clergy or Jordana in our office to learn more. Shalach manot. It is the time to fill out your forms. Again, the form is in your e-blast. $72 gets your message out to the whole congregation. It is the biggest fundraiser Sisterhood does each year, and Sisterhood does a lot of good, so get your cookies. And there are order forms on the table right outside. We make over 1,000 Hamantashen. And then the next day they're packaging it up. If you can either help bake or come next day and package it up, all help is appreciated. That it? Anybody? Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So I'm really glad that we're doing a diaper drive at the temple. And I just want to point out to you, a lot of us are past this in life, including me, but does anyone know what diapers cost anymore? They're astronomical. And not only are diapers astronomical, but so is baby formula. Baby formula is so expensive that it has to be locked up when you buy it, and you get somebody to unlock it for you, because it is like, it's like over $50 a can of baby formula. And if your baby is on hyperallergenic formula, it's like $80. So,
The issue too is the children don't supply their own diapers. They often can't go to daycare, and then the parents can't go on to work. So that's the issue with the diapers.
So Mary Beth, thank you, shared with us, I want to make sure everyone live streams heard what you said, that if a child doesn't have diapers that the parents can supply, then they can't go to daycare, and then the parents can't go to work. And the family is held back financially. So that's very important. And that's something that we can make a difference with. There's so much in our world that is so far out of our hands, but what you do locally does make a difference. And one more thing about our community, I had a phone call this week from Interfaith Neighbors. They were thanking us for our support. And Interfaith Neighbors is an organization that we've been involved with for many, many years, building affordable housing for people in Monmouth County who would never, ever have the chance to live in a home without this. Besides the daycare they provide, besides the garden they have, and the Meals on Wheels, and all sorts of things they do. And the woman who was telling me all this, because I know about Interfaith Neighbors because I'm on the board now, also said, but I can't believe what your temple does besides that. She said, your garden, lunch break, everything. It's always Monmouth Reformed Temple. So, you know, that's a nice reputation to have. And I said to her, that's the congregation. And this congregation was like this long before I came, and you will be like this long after I leave, because that's who you are as a people. And I'm very proud of you. And I'm proud to be part of you. So our closing song is on page 653. It's Eli, Eli. Eli, Eli is a Hebrew song, and the poem was written by a very brave Jewish woman, and Hannah Senish was able to immigrate to Israel, and she was living in Israel, and she knew that there was work to be done, and she parachuted into Hungary, and as a partisan during World War II, was captured and tortured and killed. But before that, when she lived in Israel, she wrote a body of poems, and this one was set to music. And her story, although very sad, should be one we don't forget about how brave she was, not only for Israel, but for the entire world. That's what World War II was about, the entire world. We joined together. Our BEMA guest, to our speaker, Andy Melnick. Thank you very much for bringing back difficult news to talk about and speaking of it in a way that we could all take it in. Thank you to Margot Hassan, and it's special that you're on the BEMA tonight because it's your father's yard site, so we thank you. And to Dr. Peter Isherwood, who is a treasure to our community and to Middletown North. The students are very lucky to have you. We joined together in the Motzi. Important to remember that this prayer is not about flour. It's thanking God for bringing forth bread from the earth. But it would not be possible without the human part of it, which is to make that seed into flour and to make that flour into bread. And we are partners with God, and this is a reminder of our partnership with God to feed and to make the world a better place. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom. And there are 6 cakes inside. No problem. No problem.
Many thanks.
I hope you feel appreciated and loved here.
Oh, yeah,
So,
always.
I finished
I
the
love
tea.
you guys here.
We love you too.
Finished the tea.
You're very special to us.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to help. And I mean,
Got
all these
underneath there,
places
let me
are
go
just
grab
looking
the,
for someone.
Hang out for the sound.
Do they really think that